Good morning to everyone that's joining us for our presentation on innovative retirement income streams. Just to introduce ourselves to you before we begin, we've got James McFall, who's the founding director of Yield Financial Planning, and my name is Onno Silvest.
So today I will give you a very brief understanding about who we are, but the topic today is retirement, and in particular this new-ish solution, innovative retirement income streams, and how it can positively impact your eligibility to age pension. As Onno has already introduced us, my name's James, and there's some information about both of us. But I founded Yield in 2006, and we help our clients grow wealth and retire securely. Typically, we're helping people who are over 40 years of age. We have our head office in Surrey Hills, but we also have a presence in Sydney.
Before we get on to the information side of the presentation, I want to go for a disclaimer. Just to mention that what we're going to go through, it is general in nature, and it doesn't really take into account your personal circumstances. But if you feel that anything that we're going to present to you could apply to your situation, more than happy to have a further discussion with you.
All right, perfect. Well, of course, this goes without saying, but we're going to talk to you about an idea here. It's ultimately only as good as that unless it's executed. So if you are interested in what you hear and would like to discuss further about how it could potentially work for you, then please feel free to reach out.
So traditional retirement strategies. What this slide does is it really looks at what are some of the key concerns that retirees have. And on the other side of the screen or the box, it's looking at how the government and regulators are responding to some of those concerns. So to go through the dot points mentioned, and typically we see this with a lot of clients that we help as well, they've got a fear of running out. I think that's probably one of the main things that we see. But the other thing that is also a concern is, well, how much is really enough? Is what I have at the start of my retirement going to get me through, longevity-wise? How long is it going to last? And I think the third point there is, could I enjoy a better retirement, being able to draw a higher income without that fear of running out? And James, did you want to go through the items on the next box?
Sure. So basically the way that the government's responding is it's providing incentives to save for retirement through superannuation, tax incentives. They are looking for innovation in the industry, which basically is going to give retirees confidence about what they have. And what's interesting is that at the bottom there you can see that retirees, the majority are actually passing on with 90% of their assets still intact. Now, we recognise that in that stat, a lot of it's going to be linked to the family home, but it's an interesting stat nonetheless. And the next one there suggesting that $1 in every $3 paid out of super will be passed on as part of an estate. And that's due to the increase in value of superannuation and this general tendency for people to feel insecure and to therefore have spend less in their retirement than potentially could afford.
Yep. So in other words, there is an issue where because retirees are scared to spend what they have, they're holding on to it, and it just means that they're not living their best life. And that's something that we like to have an impact at trying to change.
100%.
So innovative retirement income streams, what are they? Effectively, there's three stages to an innovative retirement income stream, which we're going to go through. But at the start, it operates very much like a regular superannuation account. There's no minimum age. There's full investment choice. So just like the options available in a superannuation fund, you've got effectively the same options with an IRAS. You're not locked in. And how I can relate that back to superannuation is we've got options with who we choose to invest our superannuation with, and we can actually do rollovers, etc. Same thing applies to an IRAS to a certain point, and we're going to delve into that again in a few more slides. But where the innovation really comes in is the potential age pension benefits, and there's a very good introduction there, 40% discount on asset test for future age pension eligibility. Again, we've got some slides that will showcase some case studies.
Yeah. So this basically just illustrates the difference between a traditional superannuation account and an innovative retirement income stream, or let's start referring to it as IRAS.
Yes, it is a big word.
Yeah. So we all have superannuation. It's a legislative requirement for your employer to be paying into your super, and that will grow. We refer to as accumulation while you're contributing to it. It is possible then to have what is referred to as a hybrid pension or a transition to retirement. Sometimes you might have heard of it spoken of, whereby it's forms of pension until eventually you have a full retirement pension in the form of an allocated pension. And that's the typical and has been the traditional way of that superannuation works and ultimately for your retirement. The way that Iress works is that firstly, as Honor just mentioned on the slide before, the superannuation is, for all intents and purposes, operates the same as has always been the case. It will be invested in line with the way that you choose to invest it. And there's really no limitations on, no more limitations on how you invest than you currently used to. There's this alternative hybrid stage referred to as deferred lifetime income, and that has its own benefits, followed by a lifetime income stream. Now, within what the column on the right showing is that basically all of the investment options that were available in your normal structure today are also available in Iress.
Okay, so the 3 C's. How can Iress actually help increase income? So broadly speaking, it provides more confidence. So overcoming that fear of running out for retirees. It's got some Centrelink benefits, and the 3rd C, which we refer to as credits, is something, I guess, quite new, and we will take some more time to explain that as we progress throughout this presentation. But yeah, that feature there is effectively it's really helping with point 1, confidence, in that with the mortality credits, the longer you live, the more income you have, and yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, well, that's why ultimately this is about addressing the observations that we made and that are documented at the start, which is that people aren't feeling confident to spend what they have worked hard for their life to earn.
That's right.
And this is essentially all about giving you that confidence.
Okay, so what we've got on the screen now are the current Centrelink assessment and payment rates. So as you can see on your screen, for a couple combined, once you, as a homeowner, to receive the full age pension, if your assets are below 451,500, you'd receive the couple full age pension, which is detailed below. So that's around just shy of $43,000. However, once your assets reach above the upper threshold of $1,003,000, you would receive no age pension. So what the Iress strategy and effectively product is helping retirees with is to get a more favourable assessment from a Centrelink perspective, especially when it comes to the asset test.
Yeah, and I think it's worth just taking a backward step from what Honest just said, is explain what the assets test or how it works. But essentially, the important thing to understand is that when you approach Centrelink for your eligibility to age pension, they're going to apply 2 tests. There's an assets test and an income test. The assets test is what is the most widely used, but essentially it means that if you have assets in excess of what's spelt out there, depending if you're a homeowner or a non-homeowner, then you will either receive, then it will start to eat in your pension entitlement. If you have greater than the upper limits, then you'll receive no pension entitlement. The other test being income test, the way it works is that it's looking at your assessable income, and if your assessable income is in excess of the thresholds, then that will impact you. And whichever test has the biggest impact is the one that Centrelink choose. Assets test is the one that generally affects people first. So this Iress solution has a positive impact on assets test and to a lesser extent can on income test as well.
Okay, so we're looking here at the various stages of an Iress and how different discounts can be applied throughout those 3 stages. So what we're starting off there is, if we look at the basic discount, firstly, what you would receive is upon entry into Iress, you receive a 40% discount on the asset test, meaning that 60% of your balance is actually assessed for the asset test.
That's huge.
That's huge, yep. And then when we're looking at growing your balance, so effectively, if you are in an Iress product, the longer you're in it, the actual discount can be increased, because there's a feature where, regardless of what your account might be earning, the deemed percentage that that is your account is deemed to be earning is what is actually applied. So if that's taken then throughout the time that you've got the RS account, whatever the deemed balance is at the end, you then receive a further discount on the end balance. So that's how that works. And then commutations, which we'll get to in a moment, when you're in the middle stage of the RS, which is the deferred income stage, and you're making commutations from the account, that has an impact of, further enhancing the asset test side of things as well.
And everything we've just said there, it makes no sense at all. The bit underneath provides a pretty good summary of the benefit of an asset test reduction. If you've reduced your assets by $100,000 in settling size, that equates to an uplift in age pension entitlement. So that's not.
Yep.
Per annum. Now, we mentioned that it also has some positive impact on income test, though to a far lesser degree. Look, I think that if we distill it down to what's referenced there, that 20,000 reduction in your assessable income results in a $10,000 extra age pension entitlement. It helps you understand how the income test works. We won't focus on it for the purpose of this presentation.
Okay, so we've got an example that we're providing on the screen for you now. And what we're looking at here is a client situation where initial deposit is $300,000 within their super account. They're age 50. Net earnings rate that we're taking a look at as an example is 7.08%. But what the deeming rate is actually 2.25%. So if we just have a look at the graphical representation and the blue and the green lines, in a traditional super account, with a starting balance there at 300,000, by the time the client gets to age 60, 61, you can see there that the blue line represents a balance of $650,000. Now, what the green line represents, on the contrary to that, is having a starting balance of $300,000, because it's getting deemed at 2.25% as opposed to the average earnings rate of 7.08%, you can see there that the actual deemed amount by Centrelink is a lot less at $400,000. So there's a significant difference there. And as I was mentioning in the earlier slide, you then get a discount on that end balance before you get into effectively the retirement stage, when you're starting to get to that transition to retirement stage.
So I'm just to get this straight, we're basically saying that 680,000 is my actual balance at age 61.
Yep.
But the value that Centrelink's going to deem it as being is 200,000.
Exactly.
Yeah. Brilliant. So that's powerful.
So that's over a 63% discount overall.
Yeah.
When you take into account the deeming factor.
Yeah. One small observation to make is that deeming rate, while it's the actual rate at present, it is actually a concessional rate. So it will likely increase in the near future, but still very likely to be favourable to the 7%, that's for sure. So let's give another example. So this is Peter and Sue, they're 55 now and they're still working. They've got $575,000 in super combined and they're making $20,000 of contributions per annum. So they're wanting advice on what government entitlements they may be eligible to and how their retirement's going to look. There are a number of things that we're going to do for Peter and Sue when we speak to them, specifically relating to superannuation. We're going to consider consolidation of their superannuation, maximising their contributions, and there's various different types that we look at that are noted up there. We will consider in-specie transfer of assets they might own personally into the super environment, consider their risk profile, are they invested appropriately for their risk comfort, how we can look at minimising tax generally. Many government entitlements are eligible. The government has a scheme called co-contribution, spouse contribution. There's the lower income tax offset. So we'll look at all of those as potential opportunities for Peter and Sue to grow their superannuation. And then depending on their age, we'll actually both 55 in this case, but we'd also consider spousal contribution splitting. So based on them just doing what they're doing, contributing the 20,000 per annum, considering that 55, if they retire at 65, this is a representation of how their super might grow with the 7.5% earnings rate that's assumed in this case. And look, what we can already see there is they're in a pretty good position. However, if we remember the upper asset test threshold, it would mean that they're ineligible for any age pension because they're over the cap.
And so,
represented here.
yeah, and so if we're just isolating this situation by only looking at how Iris could help as opposed to all the other strategies that we're considering as well, this is just isolated to Iris. But as I just said earlier, if we look at that, not eligible for age pension, 1.5 million of account-based pension. Now, is there anything that we can do to change that? Let's look at an example where Iris is utilised.
Sure.
So to begin with, not eligible, and by utilising Iris and getting the 40% discount on the asset test, actually, if I take a step back, firstly, we're looking at the deemed balance because we're assuming that they've actually engaged Iris early on.
Yep.
So they get the
So from
benefit.
55,
Exactly.
we've met with them.
Yep.
Said, hey, look, this might be suitable.
Mhm.
And we've invested in a super fund that is eligible to Iris.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so the middle line, or if you like the grey line, it actually shows what the deemed balance would be from Centrelink. So not what their actual balance would be, but what Centrelink see it as.
Mhm.
And then when you get to the end of that journey, the orange line at the very end represents how Centrelink are going to look at their
And that's
space
because
pension.
they actually apply an additional 40% discount.
Exactly, on the deemed value. So not the brown line, but the grey line in the middle. 40% is applied on that.
Yes. So in this case, 580,000 is what Centrelink is going to view their superannuation balance for assets test versus the 1.5 million, in fact, they have.
That's right. So we've got a bar chart that's representing a projection on what Peter and Sue's, the longevity of their account effectively, based on an amount assumed that they're spending, which is 85,000 in today's dollars. So without utilising Iris, you can see there that the age pension kicks in a couple of years after they're eligible. So eligibility age for them would be around 68. So 2 years they're not receiving that eligibility, but it does kick in later on. But you can see there that, even with their current plan, if you want to call it that, they're in a pretty comfortable position. They've got enough money there. However, their account-based pension or their super money effectively would run out at age 90, and then beyond that point, they'd be limited to just the Centrelink age pension. So that's, I guess, the current trajectory.
They're living on $85,000
Yep.
in today's dollars,
Just utilising their super balance
just using their super and Centrelink entitlement as it becomes eligible.
as it becomes. That's right.
Yeah, and this also assumes that they don't have any other financial assets outside of super. Everything's
Exactly.
basically consolidated in super. Interesting. So then what about if we apply Iris?
Yes. So when we apply Iris, the first thing that jumps out at me is the eligibility for the age pension.
Yeah, the green is
The green.
isn't it? Yeah.
It's a lot more green, so they're eligible for that earlier on. But I know there's many things to look at in this chart, but I just want to bring everyone's attention to the fact that they're actually receiving more income overall due to the age pension eligibility in the earlier years of retirement, which I think is quite important because that's the years in which you're going to be most active. So I just wanted to make that observation to begin with. But James, did you want to sort of add to that?
I think, well, the thing I just want to point out is that the income itself is no different. So the income is the same. In both examples, they're drawing 85,000 in today's dollars or 110 in future dollars. But what the difference here is that you can see the longevity is, so whereas in the initial example, money ran out, let's go back to it, money ran out at basically age 90.
That's right. Yeah.
In this example, you can see that money doesn't run out till, the earning capacity for that level of spending is maintained until 93. But then importantly, the light blue line, which actually represents the Iris pension that's been invested in this example, continues into essentially in perpetuity and ensures that if you live considerably longer than life expectancy today, that you're actually very likely to have money in excess of age pension, whereas in the alternative, in historical and normal retirees allocated pension, they wouldn't.
Yes, and on this example, you can actually see that the dark blue line, which represents the super balance, actually lasts longer. And the reason for that is because they've got more age pension coming in, they're drawing less from their actual super, and that has the impact of making it last longer in this example.
And I might just, okay, So we've talked to what this is, but perhaps just to explain it a little bit further. When you invest into an IRAS, and so for Peter and Sue, they put their money into this IRAS product at 55. They then have the right, but not the obligation, to invest that money into an IRAS. It's a decision that you would make closer to the time, because as to how much, or if indeed you invested any at all within an IRAS, because there are some shortcomings of an IRAS in terms of the way that some considerations that that everyone needs to be aware of. One of which is liquidity. So in this example, what we've done is simply split 50% into a normal retirement allocated pension and 50% into an IRAS, just to demonstrate the benefit to longevity. But when it comes to it, for you or for any, it always should be a very personalised discussion initially, but then also balance between how much you actually put into pension mode, utilising the IRAS, and how much you retain in the normal traditional allocated pension, because one of the advantages of the traditional allocated pension is it's more flexible. You can withdraw sort of any amount you like tax-free. So I think that whereas IRAS has limitations, so
and that's where it goes.
Balance
the personalisation, comes into it.
Yeah.
That's where we highly recommend you speak to an advisor, just to look at the benefit to your unique situation. The examples we are going through are just, again, very, very general. And in a lot of cases, we are assuming a 50% split. And in reality, I mean, based on the work that we've been doing, it seems like the sweet split, or the sweet spot is about that 50-50. But again, a very general, you might be better off to have 30% or 60%. And that will all be determined on your personal objectives.
And so this is another example to share. Maybe you want to talk through this one?
Yeah, no problem. So just Rob and Amanda, case study that we're doing here, and age 67, they've got a balance of $500,000 each. They are homeowners. They've got $50,000 of lifestyle assets, and they're actually retired. Their goals are to maximise their income and hopefully never run out of money, which is
very nice.
Great goal. Okay. Now, to explain this chart, we're looking at scenario 1. It represents a minimum drawdown from their super effectively, and IRAS is not utilised here. So we're looking at an income of $50,000. What we can see there is
That's what they've said that they want.
They want effectively.
They've come to us and said, I'd be happy with 50,000.
Yeah, it looks like they're sort of thinking of, I think they've got the fear of running out at the back of their mind as well. But in any case, $50,000, what this chart shows is that the situation looks okay. I mean, the blue line represents their account-based pension or their super money, and then a bit of age pension kicks in down the line as well.
Yeah, and historically with this, we would have been, for one thing, this is going to give confidence around spending the 50,000. It's certainly, we were speaking to these people, Rob and Amanda, would be sort of encouraging them to potentially look at spending a little more if that's going to add value to their life, and or just look at any sort of lump sum expenses that they might be considering, like upgrading the car and stuff that also might come into this, or going on holidays.
That's right. And just one more thing to highlight here is there's no age pension eligibility for the first 5 years of retirement.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's one key thing to take note of before we get into the next slide, which is scenario 2. So this is looking at utilising, again, that 50-50 split, half of the super balance in IRAS, half in a traditional super account. What that does effectively is reduce their assessable assets. So it falls from $1 million to $800,000 with that 40% discount applied on IRAS. And what we're looking at here is, as you can see, their income is increased by 46% to $73,000, which is, quite a significant jump. And we're now getting into the territory of more of a comfortable retirement lifestyle. But if you look at the green bar, they're actually eligible for 7K pension from the very start.
Yeah,
and that's a significant difference. And when you apply that across the time frame that we're looking at on this graph, for the first 5 years, it's an additional age pension of $75,000 versus having no age pension for the first 5 years. So effectively, it's a 75% benefit in the first 5 years.
Yeah, and so basically, when you're looking at this chart, you can look at green as being, paid to you by the government, so therefore not eating into your retirement savings. and
it's-
to getting 75,000 straight from the
That's right.
it's giving you confidence in your retirement income.
Confidence, diversifying your income as well. So it's actually not market linked. Centrelink is more, it's governed.
Yeah.
So, for some people that might be important as well, depending on how you are as are you a conservative person. So a lot of people like that it's not market linked.
Yeah, and then if you see the other two, the light blue and the dark blue being the traditional allocated pension, completely flexible, the light blue being the IRIS, and like in the previous example where it was just the all allocated pension and age pension, it lasts the distance, but we're drawing a hell of a lot more. And you can see that in what the light blue represents is some greater degree of confidence that your money's going to be continuing to provide this income, kind of no matter how old, how long you live.
Scenario 3.
This is just looking at maths. Draw, right?
That's right. So this is just, it's an example to show you, if IRIS was used,
Just really
optimizing as much as possible. So if we go through the facts here, it's following on from example 2, it's still a 50-50 split, but you can see there that with this example, in that deferred income stage, there's been some drawdowns happening. And what that does is it actually accelerates the rate in which your assets are reduced for the asset test. So in this example, if you look at the first 5 years, they're actually getting additional age pension of 89,000 as opposed to the 75 that was on the previous slide. So there's a benefit there, but their income has actually increased to $90,000. So that's actually an 80% increase compared to the 50,000 that we were initially looking at without utilizing IRIS at all. Now, this just enhances the situation further from slide 2.
It does, and I think that in the end, this is about you having confidence to spend and enjoy the money that you've worked hard to build. So just always keeping that in mind.
Yes.
So what are the advantages? Well, you get the asset test discount that we've just been discussing, and it's obviously, you can hopefully see from those examples that it's substantial. It allows you to plan forward with greater confidence because we can sort of model this with a fair degree of clarity.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to change your investment philosophy. The various the providers that have IRIS solutions are going to allow you to invest in the same way that their traditional investors would, and you're locking in your assets test early. So any future changes, well, it's not guaranteed, but historically they have been grandfathered. So in other words, in our experience, when different innovative solutions have been introduced to the market, but then later repealed, those that were in them had grandfathered benefit, or in other words, were allowed to maintain the benefit that they were receiving. And it's not guaranteed, but it's the way that we've identified and noticed that it's worked in the past in several occasions.
Legislation is always, there's always changes being applied.
Yeah.
So I guess what we're trying to say there is, if you take advantage of the current rulings, although we can't say 100% they're going to be locked in for life, we're saying that based on previous examples of different types of strategies that had different benefits attached, those individuals were able to continue them on. So
and that's what we could talk to about.
Things to consider. So what this is looking at is, again, IRIS is not going to be suitable for everyone. And here's some examples of things for you to consider. If you've got a low asset balance, so if your overall assets are going to be below the lower asset test threshold to begin with, then perhaps there's going to be no benefit for you. But if you're over that, and again, there is going to be what we refer to as the sweet spot for individuals that it is going to be suitable for, and we can go over those examples with you later on. We think that there are a lot of people that can benefit from this, but again, there's also going to be those individuals that would never have benefited from it overall because their asset balance is low to begin with,
or sort of so substantial that the trade-off we wouldn't think.
Exactly. Now, there's a cost element there, and it's not a huge impact. It just means that the product cost could be 0.1% higher than the traditional side of super. But in exchange for that, there's the multiple benefits that you have through the asset test could far outweigh that, depending on the situation. The income drawdowns, as James was mentioning earlier, there are restrictions in terms of what you can withdraw, but there are alternative strategies that you could utilize to make that not so much of an issue. The estate benefit, which James touched on earlier as well. And again, just want to highlight that the above highlights or the above considerations, they may or may not be applicable to your situation. So we do highly recommend you seek personal advice before.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Yeah, for sure. So where's your next? We hope you've seen value in the presentation we've just provided. Hopefully that gives you some understanding of of what Iris is and how it potentially could be valuable to. We're available. We're a team of 5 advisors and a team of 15, so that we're well versed in this as a solution amongst many other retirement opportunities and wealth building opportunities. So we'd be happy to meet with you. Please feel free to reach out. We would also ask that you provide your feedback on this event. So we will be sending out a feedback form, and thank you for your attendance. Yeah, if you're wanting to know more about yield, jump onto our website, which is yieldfinancialplanning.com.au.
Thank you.
So just leave it there. Is there any questions? And Risha, if you could just share those with us if there are any questions from the room. Doesn't look like there is. If there is any follow-up questions, please feel free to just reach out to us directly. But otherwise, thank you again for your attendance and enjoy the rest of your day.